guys? Today is a little bit different. I'm gonna basically just be going over an overview as like an update of what has happened on the car, the plans, what I've done, parts, stuff like that. And any questions, ask away in the comments. I'll feel free to answer. A lot has changed since the last video, that's for sure. The last video I posted, I believe I was just doing the tubs and just doing the metal work of the engine bay. That was probably a month or so ago or more. Right now it is, the motor's in, a lot of stuff is mocked up. I got the intercooler in, I got oil cooler. I got most of basically everything done other than intercooler piping and the radiator. That's really it. I basically have to, there's a list of a million things I have to do, but the main ones are radiator, transmission and clutch I have to still put in, but for pulling the motor in and out a bunch of times for mocking up, it's way easier. And then I gotta do the intercooler piping with my turbo oil cooler lines, and that's it as far as I know, other than maybe some more smaller stuff here and there, but that is at least the main part of it. As you can see, motors in there, some lines are ran. It's got the exhaust set up. I still need to get a wastegate for it so I can parallel that. I still have to get like a belt, still have to get a bolt for the alternator bracket. There's just a lot of stupid miscellaneous stuff that's not really top priority, but it definitely needs to get done, obviously. I do have to work on my wiring harness, which I have, I don't know if you can see it hanging up on the wall right there. I had a buddy on Instagram who reached out, who I got my turbo manifold from. I got some other parts from him. He was like, hey, I have an ECU and a harness that's complete for a manual GTE setup. And I'm like, oh, perfect. So he shipped that to me. So instead of having to convert my GE to a GTE, I basically am running full GTE setup other than the block. So it won't have oil squirters, and it won't have, I believe there's a second knock sensor or something like that, but I will have a CPS, I'll have coils, I'll have all that stuff. So my engine bay is shaved, so I'm going to be tucking harness and hiding a lot of the wiring. So here soon, hopefully in the next week or two, I'm going to take the harness, I'm going to install it, route stuff where I need to route it, and then do the old snip and start cutting wires and extending to where I can hide the wiring like underneath stuff. Like if I can run it underneath the intake manifold and loop it around, or on the back of the firewall or something where it's less hidden with a cleaner wire loom instead of a lot of the nasty stuff that is stock. I did re-loom, which I have the fenders on now so you can't really see, but I did re-loom and tuck all of the engine slash body harness stuff. So like the headlights, everything has been re-loomed. I checked all the wires, I cleaned everything up. All the relays that were originally on the fender wells for like the fuel pump and I believe wiper and stuff like that are actually back here in this corner underneath the fender where they're tucked. You'll never see them. Obviously, when I replace them, it'll be kind of a pain, but that's just pulling the fender off, replacing them, putting the fender back on. So that's not that big of a deal. So let me get to showing you guys around the car if you haven't seen it before. If you haven't seen it before, I recommend checking out some other videos on my channel, and that'll hopefully refresh or show you what has been going on. So before any of you guys wonder, yes, I don't have tires on my wheels. I traded some of my old wheels for these. They're Weds. They're the second series or Weds Curb 2, whatever you want to call them. But they were in pretty rough shape. So like this one I haven't done anything with. You can see it's got pretty mean chipping and peeling, and then it's got nasty barrels. These two I haven't done anything, but these two I rebuilt. So I re-powder coated the faces to a new silver, added a little bit of sparkle to it, and then I recut and polished the lips, and I resealed them. I got all new hardware, so that's why some hardware is missing. I'm waiting on the rest to show up. And it is on blocks. Don't think I just have bare wheel on the ground. I would never do that. But I'm waiting until I rebuild those two and clean them all up, and then I'll put the tires back on. It's just I've been slacking, been kind of busy. But for starters, the engine bay. Last time you guys saw this, there was no motor. The tubs weren't here. I don't think there was any primer. There was no core support. There was a lot of stuff missing. So now, I don't even know really where to start, but this is a 89 7M GE block originally. It was a factory 89 GE manual motor, transmission, whatever combination in the car. I pulled the motor and trans. I have the transmission back there under the bench. I did I believe it's a CX Racing turbo manifold. This is a H1C whole set Cummins motor or Cummins turbo off of a Dodge. I just rebuilt that, and then I have a turbo bag to kind of clean it up a little bit. The wastegate port, and then my oil cooler line. I got this from, a lot of you might know him, Mainstream Builds. This is what this whole motor and everything has been built off of. Just, I'm a little bit more OCD. I've routed my stuff a little bit differently, obviously changed some stuff up. A lot of stuff on my motor build you will see on his car, and I will take full accountability for copying him. He has been helping a lot with all of this, for getting this all done. He helped me with the intake manifold. He helped me with the turbo manifold for like positioning. He helped me where to route my oil cooler and oil feed and my drain and all kinds of stuff. Definitely shout him out. He's been insane for helping me out. But I can't remember what it is, but down on the block there is basically a port just like this one here, but it's a little bit smaller, and it's underneath over there. I'm not sure if I can get it where you guys can see it. Mainstream Builds, who I got the idea from, he actually used the factory threads on his. I did not. I drilled and tapped mine out to, I believe, whatever equivalence of 4 AN, I believe, is what I did. I should probably know this, but I'm pretty sure I did 4 AN to a 6 AN fitting. So I tapped the block to 4 AN threads, did a 4 AN to 6 AN adapter, and then the line that's ran to the top of the turbo is a 6 AN, and I just have a 90 with a coupler coming off the top. And then there's some of these little brackets that hold the hose. I used one and I just drilled it to a bigger hole and put it to where it holds it, so that way it's not wanting to rub up against my hood exit. But everything is AN braided line. It's not stainless. I use the thread style or fabric or whatever, string, whatever you want to call it. Same thing for the valve covers. They are a 6 AN fitting welded on each one. I took the fittings and I chopped them off and then welded them to the valve covers. And these are stock valve covers. I have a grinder disc or a sander disc that goes on my DA, and I basically shaved everything down. So there's no letters, no nothing on it. So I shaved everything down, and then I did a pink with glitter so it matched the turbo. I will probably end up redoing them because a part of me wants to fill these holes because I'm kind of being OCD about it. And then to get back where we were, the vent for the catch can, a lot of people run the catch can on that side, but I did like a hideaway coolant reservoir, and that will eventually get powder coated black so it matches the reservoir. But underneath the fender, as you can see, I will eventually have a grommet, but the hose goes there, comes along here, and it goes through my hole here for my harness, and I will extend this out once I get a new hose and a grommet, and it'll be my overflow for the radiator. So I went to where it's all hidden underneath, you don't see any of it. Try to keep stuff off the engine bay where you're more hidden. There's a couple more things where I have to run the brake lines. I have them all sitting on my dirt bike, but I'm waiting till I paint the motor to put them in, because that's what that little hole there is for it. It goes up and it actually goes underneath that lip, and then it goes behind the brake booster, and then it goes into the block that's down here off of the booster. So a bunch of small tedious things. The catch can, for instance, this is same as a turbo, it's 6AN. It's routed here. I put some rib nuts in the firewall and then just drilled the hole for the bracket. So this is usually just like a little Allen screw that holds the two pieces together, like this one's loose. What I did was I drilled the hole bigger through both of them, put a rib nut in the firewall, so now it's held on there so the hoses can't move around. And then what I did was, this is a barbed fitting on the catch can, and all I did was basically heat the rubber hose up with my torch, and then I just pushed them on, and then I put a hose clamp just to kind of have that cleaner look. Same thing for the boost one, or the booster one, is it's just heated up for now. I'm probably gonna end up changing this, and then I'll probably end up tapping a port for this to be a 90, so it's not like a moon. And then I have my vacuum ports. Speaking of the intake, while we're on here, custom intake, those ports will be for like the blow off valve, the fuel pressure regulator, stuff like that. The intake is a 7M GT, GE, whatever you want to call it, 7M runners. So the part that comes off the head, and then the chrome actual intake is a 2JZ intake. And what I did, Mainstream Builds has a video on this of him showing what he did in way more better detail. But he basically, what I did was I took a chunk of aluminum, took a gasket to the 7M runners to where it bolts up on that piece that comes up and over the top, traced it out, I ported it, and then I cut that out of the 2J piece, and I had a shop weld it all together. And then this is, I believe, 1/2-inch aluminum plating that they cut a hole out, recessed it in, and then welded it so I can tap my ports for my fittings and do all of that. I mean, I could go on and on and on of stuff that's been done, probably custom or aftermarket on here. And feel free to ask any questions you want in the comments. I would love to answer them, definitely help everybody out. The intercooler, a lot of people mount, everybody mounts it differently. Mine, I customized and made it myself because I put my oil cooler in front of it. So this piece here is the intercooler, that's the oil cooler. And what I did was I just welded a bracket, bent it around the cooler, and then same thing for on the bottom, but it goes onto that piece of the frame or the unibody instead of the actual rail. And then I extended it out and just put a bolt through the oil cooler, so my oil cooler lines run in, and so on. Those still need to be extended to fit the housing over here for the oil filter and all that. And then some of you may have realized in this area, my core support is bolted on. So when I originally decided to pull the motor, I didn't want to pull the trans off in the car. I wanted to pull transmission, motor, everything vertical and out, but I was struggling. I was by myself. I was doing it with just an engine hoist, and it wasn't on a stand. It wasn't on anything. And so I basically cheated the system, and what I did was I just took my cutoff wheel and I just chopped each side. Pulled the bumper, pulled the nose piece, and I pulled everything straight out. Obviously, I had to go up and over for the rack and pinion and the subframe and all that, but that was way easier than trying to come up and over everything. So now it is a million times easier than trying to get up and over than to just put the motor straight in. And I have pulled this motor 4 or 5 times now in the last like 3 or 4 months, just for mocking everything up, because it's way easier for me, in my opinion, my personal opinion. Like when I did my oil lines for the turbo, I pulled the motor out. I put everything fittings wise, tapped the block out of the car, put the hoses on, left them loose, put it in, and then I routed the hoses off of that and cut them where I needed them and went that route. Obviously everybody's different. You can do it however you want to do it, but that's the way I did it. There are obviously different outcomes for everybody. I mean, I'm used to pulling it so many times that it's not even an issue for me anymore, and I just pull it to pull it. I mean, sometimes I pull it just to clean the engine bay or wipe stuff down because I don't like it getting dirty sitting here. There's many reasons why I pulled it, but probably more than I should, but we're just going to go with it. So with that, speaking of like engine and all that, still you can kind of see the old harness under there. It comes in, I drilled a hole over there with a hole saw. It comes in, it's currently just zip tied up right there through a hole, and then it runs underneath the core support. There's your passenger pop-up. I believe that's the hood sensor or hood piece, whatever that is, or horn maybe, I don't know. Here's driver headlight and all that. There's the passenger headlight, and then that's really it for this side. There are the fog lights, but I don't have them in this bumper, so it's just a pigtail, which I'll probably just cap and go from there. I have the fenders on, so it kind of sucks to see, which I might throw some pictures in here for you guys to kind of see of when it was with the fenders off, because there's a lot of harness on this side. This is the main side of the harness because it has the main actual body harness going through. So I 3D printed some like C-clips, basically kind of same style as these, where you put a self-tap into it to hold it, and then the wire clips in and it won't let it come out. And that's it starts here and then it goes up, so that way when I hit a bump or something, it doesn't want to fall down onto my tires. Fuse box I relocated. I believe it used to be like up in here. I just pushed it down. I have to clean that hole up down there still and put a grommet on it, but I mean, I still have to do a lot of body work. Like, this is just one layer of body filler after doing my spot welds and welding it all. This side I still have to finish up. That side's complete. This one's fully shaved down, cleaned up. I'll probably sand it, do a skim coat once I'm done with everything before paint. But there's definitely a lot to it. I know some of you might be wondering about body wise, so I'm going to go over that too. Just for like the body kit, wheels, the wing, all kinds of stuff on there. For starters, we'll start with the wide body. We'll start big. The rear is, I believe it was called like a Jarvis one. I had a guy in the UK who got a hold of one, and he was able to make a fiberglass mold, and he would replicate it. And it's supposed to be hard mounted to the car and molded to the car as like a unit, so that way it doesn't ever have hardware, it doesn't have body lines, nothing like that. It just looks like it's the stock body. I spent weeks and weeks and weeks shaving the body kit down to get it to fit to where it's bolted on. And then what I did was I will eventually probably take a urethane and go around it to keep dirt and moisture and water and everything from getting behind it. Because if you have seen my other videos on YouTube, there are some on there where I'm working on the body kit on the rear and I cut the whole quarter out, so it's just empty back there. So if I were to pull this panel off, there's nothing back there other than inner supports, and you can see right here behind the gas door, you can literally see all the way through to the other side daylight because there's just the access panels there. Bumper add-on, I believe, is from Agile, whatever one is in New Zealand, if I remember right. A lot of people mold them to the car. I did some riv nuts, I held them on that way, and then I have some screws inside the fender well that hold them on. But even just pushing them on the bumper, they were ridiculously strong, like stout. The front wide body, that is a Shine Auto front. I believe they're 45 millimeter front wide body, because the front's 45 and I believe the rear's 50 or 47, or a little bit over the front. And then that's just basic. I believe they're just a fiberglass fender. They have a little carbon strip as their reinforcement. And then the skirts, those are custom made. I didn't make any videos on those, sadly. Wasn't really into the whole YouTube thing at the time. But those are, as weird as it sounds, they are a gutter off of a house. That your rain comes down, goes into the gutter, and it drains out. That's what those are. They are a 3-inch gutter. I didn't cut, right? I didn't weld anything on it. It's all straight gutter, just trimmed to make it fit. I bent it, I tweaked it, made it work. And a lot of people don't even believe me that it is a gutter, but I have pictures of it. I show them pictures of it, and they're like, there's no way they are a gutter. The rear wing, that is a Evo 8 wing. The aluminum strip on the back, I made that, customized it, did it myself, and it just has through bolts. I countersunk them into the carbon fiber. I mean, nothing really crazy for that. I will do a walk around of this and show you guys a little bit more detail. But starting with the wing, we'll start in reverse. The wing, Evo 8, it fits. I didn't have to do any modifications, but obviously doing the body work, I did drill new holes for this, and then I welded and covered the old holes. And I mean, fitment wise, it honestly is like immaculate. Like, this is the stock window trim and it came up perfect. I didn't have to sand anything down. It doesn't make contact with the actual body of the car. It stays off and it's perfectly flush with the back of the trunk. So I mean, for being an Evo wing on a Toyota, Mitsubishi Toyota, I'm very stoked that it fit, because I've always liked the high-rise wing. And I wasn't trying to spend the money for that 3-piece where it comes up off the stock part. So I just got this from a buddy for free. I painted the sides. This is probably just temporary until I can paint match the sides. But it is pure carbon. The middle I sanded down, and when I paint the sides, I'm going to clear coat this so it pops out a little bit better, because when it's wet, you can definitely see it. Like, you can kind of see the difference here between dry and wet. Taillights, I did have engraved ones, but I swapped them out, sold them to my buddy. And then the body kit for the rear, this is the Javis one, which that's how it came. So that's one that got screwed up. I got sent 2 of the driver's side, and the guy corrected it, sent me the passenger, and then it was like $800 to ship it back to the UK, so he told me to keep it. But you can see, definitely it's fiberglass, needed some TLC, but I cut mine on this line here, because I have my custom skirts to where it joins underneath the trim, so you don't see any of that. The rear, I did trim. There's this lip here. I trimmed it, I believe, right here, and then right on this edge. And then I shaped the tail light, so on the back, it loops all the way around the back of the body panel. And I shaved it to kind of just match the headlight or the tail light. And then I try to go as less hardware as possible to try to do obviously less holes in the car, but then I ended up cutting the whole quarter panel out, so it didn't really matter. So obviously with it being supposed to be molded to the car, it does have that wavy look because I don't have a bunch of hardware in it, which I'm fine with. I like the way it looks. Skirts, this is a stock piece off of the car, the mud flap or whatever you want to call it, stock part of the skirt. I believe it came down to like here, and it had the 2 pins that push in. What I did was I took the gutter, I took a couple spare pieces to kind of get like my angle of the cut, and I cut this piece right there on that line so the gutter slid underneath. And then I did a seam of urethane, and this is also a piece of gutter here, helps reinforce it. I mean, it's very solid. I do have a, like, I think it's 1/8 inch by 1 strip that run to the floors. There's one there, one in the middle, and one on the end, which that one's off because I pulled my fenders off so many times. And then for the inside, I just have some self taps in it right now to just hold it, which you can see there. I had to cut like a little relief cut because that's where it comes back and then it tips. They're just along there, but I mean, you don't see any of it. I mean, I cut a little bit too much, but I can live with that. But I mean, for being made out of a gutter, I take with what I got, so I can live with it. And then moving on to the front, these are just the Shine Auto fenders. I'm gonna be brutally honest, Shine Auto front fenders fitment, dog shit. It took probably a couple weeks max to get both fenders to fit how I wanted them, with the hood, with the door jambs, with the way the bumper fit. I had to drill the holes for the nose piece. I had to do so much modification to it that for $900 in just the fenders alone, and then I think it was like another $250 or $200 to ship, I was very, very upset with how they turned out. There was major pitting, major like holes and chips in all the corners. It took a lot of fiberglass, a lot of patience to fix them, and they still are very skeptical on fitting. But they fit well enough for me to where I'm happy and I'll deal with it. So, and I already demolished one of them, my driver's side. I had some 19s on here and I caught it with my tire and I folded it. So I'll probably end up getting new fenders eventually, which a part of me is mad at myself because I spent the $900 plus shipping on these and I never looked into the over fenders for the front, which I have an over fender rear. I think I should have done an over fender front to match, because a lot of people are like, oh, you have the rear wide body, the front is stock. And I'm like, no, the front is just new fenders. So it's kind of a 50-50 split on how people react to stuff. But I mean, it is what it is. I've spent too much money on this car already, and I'm not even close to probably being done, and I have many years to go. I have a kid coming, and I plan on this car being in my life with the kid. I plan maybe the kid having it, passing it down, going from there. I never had a car passed down from my dad or mom, but I definitely have the knowledge from my dad, and I want to be the same for my kid. And I think this car, being how much money, how much time I've put into it, I think that'd be a great start, where if he or she wanted to work on it or do something with it or drive it, do something. keep it in the family. But moving on to the inside, I'll show you guys that, and then I'll talk about some other miscellaneous stuff throughout the car. So I do have a lot of it torn apart because of the ECU. I've been swapping stuff over. The front might look a little bit different than obviously stock, but everything is stock in here other than the seats. All I have is a dash mat, and I repainted the center console, and that is it. I have all the interior pieces that are just ripped out from when I pulled the transmission. It's very dirty in here. I parked the car with the window down, did all the body work, and it got full of Bondo dust and just everything else that accumulates in a garage or shop. We'll start with the front seats. As shocking as it sounds, some of you might know from this logo, these are Polaris Razor side-by-side seats. Car factory miles does have, I believe, like, I think it was either 230 or 320 for about a seat. Factory miles are 306,394. Which this motor ran absolutely immaculate when I pulled it. I've owned 3 of these cars. One of them seized, one of them was seized, broke it free. This one was just bad wiring, and this car ran the best, and it sat in the field for 9 years before I got it. It fired right up with a electrical taped together ignition wire, and that was it. And I mean, it leaked oil and it leaked coolant, but it never burned anything. It never, as far as I know, it never smoked out the back. It didn't have oil in the coolant. It didn't have coolant in the oil. There was no like internal issues. So I literally yanked the motor out, pulled the head, resurfaced the block, put head studs in, redid all the gaskets, checked the play and a lot of stuff, and then just slapped it back together. With this car, as a sum up, I love the car. I love Toyota. I've always wanted to own a Mark III, or I've always wanted to own a Supra is what I should say. And I had a buddy offer me one for a good deal 3 years ago, and that's just where it all started. But this car has been great to me. I try to be great to it, so it treats me the same. Obviously, it's got 1,000,001 things going over its head right now, along with myself. But hopefully this summed up some of it for you guys for what it is and what it has into it and parts wise and what is needed and all that. But I try to make videos on stuff, but obviously I'm not going to make a YouTube video on mounting a catch can. Like, I feel like that's just common. I feel like anybody that wants to mount one doesn't need a video for that, unless maybe routing your lines from a certain engine or something like that. I didn't make anything on the intercooler because I didn't think about it. I get so sidetracked that I get off work, come home, bust out some work on it, go inside, call it a day. Sometimes my YouTube videos that I make for you guys are spread out of 3 days. So this one I'm squishing down into like maybe 30 minutes max. I'm speed running this stuff, but everything is stock. I'm just gonna it's stock, officer. I'm just gonna say that motor wise, stock. Internal wise, stock. The only thing that's aftermarket, air intake, turbo manifold, and turbo. That's it. Everything else, valve cover stock, water pump stock. All the pulleys are stock. The only thing that's maybe moved is the alternator. I got a CX Racing drop bracket or whatever you want to call it for the alternator because of the intake location. It's all, in reality, deep down, it's a stock build, just clean. I'm going to be running very low PSI. It's a show car. It's how I see it. I don't want to blow it up. I don't want to be racing it. Nothing crazy, but I hate to admit it, it's not fast. It's not built to be fast. It's built to be slow. It's built to cruise to a parking lot, pop the hood, be like, oh shit, there's some cool parts on here. It looks cool. That's it. And for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to build a fast car. I've always wanted to do all kinds of stuff, but I'm being a new dad. I have a girlfriend. I have a full-time job. I have bills. Not everybody can afford to dump 20 grand into a car that they want to build. So this one is what makes me happy. This is what gets me by. And this is what I enjoy doing, is just making it clean, stock clean. It's stock running gears, stock drivetrain, stock motor, stock interior. Like, there's a mix of aftermarket parts, but it's not enough to make it really, I hate not to say it, but a build. Like, yeah, it's a build, but it's just clean. It's just been redone, refreshed, cleaned up, whatever you want to call it. But that's basically it. I mean, a build is a build. To me, change some headlights out as a new beginner, call it a build. You're starting somewhere. I started with installing wiper blades at Napa Auto Parts in the parking lot for customers. And that's all it takes. I mean, I grew up around cars, but the first things I ever really did were changing wiper blades and headlights for people. And sometimes that's all it takes. And now I work on a farm and deal with cows and all that, and I am building a car of my own. So it's definitely nice to have something that you enjoy to do on the time that you have with the money that you earned yourself. And that's how I see this. This is deep down a build that I have personally busted my ass off to do with the short time I have. Like, I'm down to 6 months, I believe, before my kid is born, and that is my limit to get the engine bay painted, motor running, car driving, at least driving. I don't really care about the engine bay painted. I can do that on like a Friday night, but running and stuff, that's my plan before that time frame. So enjoy life, build it while you can, do what you can, and have fun with it. So hopefully you guys like and subscribe. Ask any questions you want to know about the car, if I forgot something, or if you're curious, or how I did something and I can reply or maybe make another video on it. Or hit me up on Instagram. It should be at the top of this video. If you missed it, it is in there. It's aqua_Mk3. I answer all questions. I get maybe 10 texts a week on questions about cars and stuff, and these cars, these motors, how I did stuff, how I did something. So feel free. Thanks for watching. Hopefully see you on the next video.